and thanks for tuning into Reali'Tea with me, your host Yuli, your one-stop listening place to recap on some of your favorite reality shows. In today's episode, we'll be covering episode 6 of the hit Zeus show, Joseline's Cabaret. For those of you just tuning in and don't know what Joseline's Cabaret is, think of if Players Club, P-Valley, and Bad Girls Club circa season 7 all had a baby. Just straight up mess. So get comfy and let's get into this episode. Before we can even get into it, we gotta give it up for Joseline for feeding us these visuals. So if you've never seen an episode, at the beginning of them, instead of there being like an opening sequence that, showcases the cast like any other reality show would, she actually uses that time block to promote her own music in her own music videos. And last season, we only had one song and visual that played throughout the whole season, so we kind of got attached to the song. But now she's doing each song off her new album that she had a visual for. So now we're up to, I believe it's 4 visuals and 4 different music videos. But in this episode, specifically episode 6, this was the 3rd one. I honestly think this is so funny because any other show would literally just showcase the cast or just highlight some of the people from the cast, but nope, she she just uses the block for herself and for her music, and hey, you gotta hand it to her because now we get more visuals and she's getting the streams since the show is airing on this really, really big network. So honestly, it's good. It's a good move on her end. So to, I guess, dissect the visual a little bit. So the song that she's promoting this episode is You in the Wrong Place.
You in the wrong place, bitch, you know I killed you dead. Look at my stay low, I'm the baddest 7-step. You in the wrong place, bitch, you know I kill you dead. Look at my stay low, I'm the baddest 7-step.
And the song is good. The visuals are good. It's just another Joseline Hernandez song. I mean, you got to give it to her. She's being consistent and staying on top of the music. Nobody thought that she would. I mean, I knew she would, but yeah, no, I love that she's like defeating everything that people were talking mess about. So now we can really get into the episode. And it starts off with the fight between Wet Wet and T-Love. Interestingly enough, Wet Wet manages to swing around the pole and kick T-Love into the ground. And immediately after, you can just see the look on Joseline's face. And you can just tell that she just didn't like the fact that, T-Love just kind of got her ass handed to her. Because if you've been watching the previous episodes, you know that, like, T-Love has been repping her city. She's been saying, like, she's been ready for everybody's smoke, So the fact that she was dropped by Wet Wet of all people, Joseline is kind of looking at her funny. Because of this fight happening, production actually asked T-Love to go outside so she can cool down. And when she went outside, Daisy decided to follow her. And Daisy wasn't being the most consoling. Daisy actually went to T-Love to tell her about something that Egypt had said, which was that Egypt had felt that T-Love was kind of bullying Wet Wet. But earlier in the episode, or an episode before, Egypt had said that to T-Love, but Daisy wasn't there when that conversation took place. So in this moment, it just seemed as if Daisy was just trying to be messy and kind of stir the pot. And because Daisy had mentioned Egypt's name, Egypt went outside and was trying to see why was Daisy talking about her. And because of this, this led to Egypt and Daisy actually having an altercation themselves, which ended up with Daisy in the hospital in the emergency room requiring stitches.
God, forgive me for my sins, because I'm about to do this bitch in.
Just crazy. So in the midst of all these fights, this led to, honestly, one of the best sound bites to come from the episode, which is when Danny was having a conversation with Egypt about the fights that happened. And when Egypt gets done explaining her side of the story about the fight, Danny says,
I mean, whatever happens, happens, but I'm going to Miami.
Which is so funny because that comedic relief was so needed because all the fights were so intense, especially after seeing Daisy leave in the sprinter covered in blood because of the fact that she got hit in her face. So Danny just came in and just made the scene like 10 times better. Also, I will say that in this episode, we get to see a couple of different sides of Joseline. Because usually we only get to see her acting crazy when she's interacting with the ladies. But in this episode particularly, we got to see her act more in a professional manner. Because you can tell that this performance for Floyd Mayweather actually means a lot to her. As she's like bringing in more input and she's talking with her choreographer. And she actually snaps at her choreographer because she's just nervous and she just wants to do her absolute best.
Jocelyn, stay to the front and just perform.
Ricardo.
Okay.
Don't talk to me.
You got it.
Stop trying to act like you're teaching me what I'm already knowing what to do.
I'm not trying to teach you.
Listen to what I'm trying to tell you.
Gotcha.
I know what I'm doing. You run the girls, let me do what I do. I just told you. I'm going to come in now and perform. And in the second one, I'm going to jump in and with them. I'm going to try it that way.
Gotcha.
What is it that you need to say to me?
And honestly, when she snapped at her choreographer, I was low-key nervous about his response towards it, but he actually handled it very well. And I think it's just because he honestly just ultimately wants to see her and the ladies do well on that stage, especially if his name is attached to the choreography. Now, this other side that I'm referring to when I mentioned that we got to see multiple sides of her personality, this other side that we got to see this episode is a more personable, humanizing side of her. Joseline had some really, really good moments with the girls this episode. We get to see her and Miss Natural open up, and you could tell that she's actually feeling Miss Natural a little bit more because, again, if you watched any of the other seasons, you could tell and you know that Joseline and Miss Natural did not get along, like, at all. So it's just really nice to see them actually build a relationship with each other, and it's really only because of this routine, and Miss Natural just really wants to kill it with Joseline, you know, which I think is really, really beautiful to see. Also, in this episode, we get to see Joseline have some one-on-ones with the ladies, and we never got to see this before on any previous season. And I feel the only reason why she did this is because of the fights that happened. So she sat down with everybody that partook in a fight and just let them express themselves and get it off their chest as to why they went down and why everything happened the way it did. And honestly, I just think that it's so cool that Joseline just gave them a chance to kind of just explain themselves without her really giving too much of her opinion. And I mean, ultimately she did. She just said that if you're going to continue doing that, you know, have it be with purpose. Just don't be fighting just because you just want to fight and just want to act an ass on TV. You know, and I think that was really, really cool. It was really nice to see that coming from her. It gave very much producer, and I like that side of her. I've been saying this to a lot of the people that watch Joseline's Cabaret or just like have an idea of what the show is, but I truly, truly mean it when I say that this season is probably one of the best seasons of Joseline's Cabaret to be released because of the fact that she's just not in the drama with the ladies. She's truly focused on growing her cabaret show and presenting herself and the cabaret show in a different light. And you could just tell how much work that she's putting into it. Every other season, she's been in the mix and she stayed in the house with the ladies. But this one, she's out the mix. She's only showing up when it's time to work. So it creates a more respectful boundary between her and the dancers for the cabaret. And you could just tell that the cabaret dancers actually appreciate the opportunity more because of the fact that she's just not in their face all the time, you know? The show has had a bad rep of Joseline just degrading these women and this, that, and the other. But this one, I can tell that she wants to do better by them and by herself and for the cabaret, which I think is just is truly, truly beautiful to watch a show like progressively just get better over time. But that's all that I have for today's episode, and I just want to say thank you for tuning in, and this has been Reali'Tea with me, your host Yuli, your one-stop listening place to recap on some of your favorite reality shows. Catch you in the next episode. Goodbye.